allow me to introduce the rest of us. We're the makers, the directors, and the creators of this generation. We don't have big award shows or huge budgets or fancy cameras, but what we do have are our phones and duct tape and parking lots and guts. And we have ideas we need to share. We know it's not the size of the production that matters, it's what you make. We don't create because we have to, we create because we love to. And we've captured billions of moments from different angles, for different reasons, for millions of viewers, but with one thing in common. When we're told that we can't, we all have the same answer. Watch me. Thank you.
Okay, he's here with us today. Here's Casey Neistat.
Thanks, man.
So good to have you.
Yeah, you could have told me I was coming on after the guy that got Trump elected. What the fuck? So that commercial, I asked them to play that commercial. That aired during the Academy Awards last week, which was on a Sunday night. And it was the first commercial to play after the monologue. So it was like 33 million people were watching when that aired. And the decision to broadcast that then was made 72 hours before that. 3 days before that, the CEO of Samsung was like, we're going to do it. And 8 days before that, we were actually shooting it. And it was just a couple weeks before that that I first got on the phone with Wyden and Kennedy and Samsung, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. There was very little planning that went into that piece, which is something I'm very proud of. I bring that up because I've been in Germany now for like 20, 23, 24 hours, and I've probably had like 10 people come up to me and ask me about my career, and they'll ask the same question. They were like, did you plan your career? And I was like, no, I didn't fucking plan my career. What does that even mean? And I asked you about it last night. It was like, Germans love planning, which I now learned. It's great. My life, my trajectory in life, my career's trajectory has very, very, very little planning involved with it. And that's what I wanted to start today talking about, is to give an idea of what it looks like, or what my thought process is that went into building what I do, this career that I have. And I've described this before in my YouTube videos, and I've really taken ownership of this idea, although it's not mine, I stole it from someone. But it's this idea of the Tarzan method. And what that means is, like, you have a goal you want to achieve. You know that you want to get to the other side of the jungle. But instead of fixating on waiting for that perfect vine that will swing you from A to B and get you there, you just kind of reach and you grab for whatever's in front of you. And it might take you that way, which doesn't feel like the right way to get that way, but it gets you a little bit closer. And that's how I've always approached everything. Because I find that in this world that I think most of us live in, the world of in one facet or another, creativity, at the core of all creativity is spontaneity. And you can't manufacture or plan or structure spontaneity. So for me, you know, I was a little kid, I wanted to make movies, and I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew I wanted to make movies. And I was always reaching for vines, and I had some really strange ones. Like I washed dishes when I was really young, and it's like, well, what does washing dishes have to do with making movies? Well, when you stare into the bottom of like a soup pot for 50 hours a week, just scrubbing disgusting fish soup out of a pot, it lets you fixate on what you want in life. And I always say that, like, those years of being a really broke, like, high school dropout, father to a baby as a fucked up teenager, it was those years that really let me establish and figure out what it is that I want out of life. So I value that, and I see that as one of the vines that I swung on to take me closer to where I wanted to be in my career. And moving to New York City and becoming an artist's assistant, which was one of the worst jobs ever. I worked for an artist who was kind of a cool guy, but one of my job duties was literally cleaning his kitty litter box. I had to scoop out the clumps of shit and put it into a garbage bag so the studio didn't smell like shit. And at that time, I'd often ask myself, what does scooping shit have to do with my dream of making movies? But certainly, in one way or another, it was getting me closer to where I want to be. And I was always reaching and always swinging, and I stumbled into the fine art world. Because in the early 2000s, when I was making short movies, there was no YouTube. There's nowhere to put these little videos. And I showed them to the people that I knew, and they're like, this is art. Call this art. And I showed it in art galleries and museums, and eventually got invited to show in more prestigious places, and that sort of one thing led to another. But certainly, when I set out with this dream of being a filmmaker, the idea that I'd be an artist making art that shows in classic venues, that didn't make any sense. But that was a vine that I gladly swung on because it got me closer to where I want to be. And ultimately, that led to working with interesting people and finding interesting opportunities. And the television show that I had in HBO was certainly one of those opportunities. And what that was working with a guy who saw my work, and he saw the work I was doing with my brother, and he said, I want to do something with you guys. I don't know what it is. Can you come back to me with a plan? And we went back to him with whatever the opposite of a plan was, and we're like, give us this much money, and we'll make a whole bunch of stuff, and we'll figure out something to do with it. And he was like, that's your plan? And I was like, it's something. And we did that, and at the end of those 2 years, what we were left with was a bunch of content that we formed and pattied into a TV show. And we took that TV show and we showed it around, and HBO bought that TV show. And all of a sudden, we went from being these sort of hacks to now having a television show that we wrote and directed and produced that was on HBO. And it was this huge deal. And when I look at that crazy path that got there, had I just stood there and waited for that perfect vine to swing me to where I want to be, it would have never happened. It was about embracing those indirect routes, those opportunities that were hard to connect with where I wanted to be, that led us there. So with that, I want to zero in right now on probably the most literal example in my career to date of doing something that worked not in spite of, but worked only because we approached it with no plan. We approached it with absolute spontaneity. And this happened at a time in my career where I was at this tremendous inflection point. I was on my own. My brother and I stopped working together. I didn't want to do TV anymore because it left a yucky taste in my mouth. I wanted to focus on YouTube, but I was struggling to really find traction on YouTube. I had a couple viral hits and was getting some interesting opportunities to work in the advertising space, but I'm a really, really, really terrible director when I have to direct stupid 30-second spots that I don't understand for products that I don't believe in. And I tried to court work that I could do on my YouTube channel, and that's a very hard prospect. The idea of give me money and I'll make a video that will benefit you was something that a lot of people scratched their heads at. But Nike stepped in, and Nike presented me with this huge opportunity to make them a bunch of films for a new product they were launching. And there was no agency involved. I was working directly with the creatives at Nike, directly with the executive team at Nike. And to them, it was small potatoes because the budget for all 3 films combined was probably less than what they spend on craft services for one of their athletes' television commercials. But for me, it was the world. And I gave them treatments and scripts, and I followed the plan that you need to follow in that space. And we made 2 videos, and they loved those 2 videos, and they were really great. But they didn't take off the way I wanted them to. They didn't take off the way the work that Nike was responding to and giving me this gig had taken off. And I was frustrated because of that. When it came time to make the 3rd video, I talked to my filmmaking partner, Max, and I was like, Max, this isn't working. I can't follow these fucking scripts that I wrote and make something that feels like it's mine. I was like, we need to do something that captures that, because that's what they want. So we came up with this kooky idea, and this was an idea I've always been sitting on. It was sort of like one of my bucket list ideas, which is basically to show up at an airport and get on an airplane to wherever the next flight out of town would take us. And then once we were there and we got bored of that place, we get to go back to the other airport, and whatever the next flight out is, we jump on that flight and fly to the next place. And we just keep doing that until we'd burned through the entire Nike budget. And I remember Max, my partner, asked me at the time, he's like, what does this have to do with an electric fitness tracker bracelet that Nike's trying to sell? And I was like, nothing! But it's going to be really fun, and we'll figure it out after. And he didn't give a shit because it was my name, not his. So he was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's what we did. We literally blew this entire budget just traveling around the world having fun. And what we were left with was this just mountain of footage that really didn't make any sense, but we had fun. And we didn't know what to do with it. And we started digging through it. We knew there was a story in there. We struggled to find it. We missed our deadline. We missed our next deadline. We were supposed to premiere it at South by Southwest in Texas, and we missed that deadline. And then Nike sent Alex Lopez, great guy, one of their executives, to my office in New York City from Portland. And he's this amazing guy that you just love. And I remember him standing over our shoulders watching the footage, and he was like, guys, what is this? And he had it was like when your dad's like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. And we had felt like we kind of fucked up, but we didn't stop until we had a video. And when we were done with that video, it was exactly what I knew we could figure out if we threw out the plan and just truly embraced spontaneity. Before I show you that video, which hopefully you've maybe seen before, before I show you that video, I wanted to bring this up, and I like to show this video because we are in a world today where it is authenticity and spontaneity. These are the buzzwords because these are real. This is what people are responding to. When kids, when young people, when everyone can click away, can close the window, can open a new tab while your commercial plays, how do you make something that actually hits them, something they actually want to engage with? And it has to have that spontaneity. It has to have that authenticity, or their bullshit detector is going to go off and they're going to close the window. And I wasn't so deliberate about it when we made this video, but that is why this video was the success that it was. Let's watch it. Let's play it. I'm going to come sit with you.
Yeah.
Definitely make this flight, but we're cutting it close. So far the trip is off to a fairly irresponsible start. And so it begins. We got to Paris, 17 degrees outside. The airport,
Yeah, welcome to Cairo.
all in all, very successful. We visited Tahrir Square. We rode horses. Max almost fell off of his.
Now commence our descent.
We're in Johannesburg, South Africa right now. Just got to Zambia. Stuck in Nairobi. We're at the Vatican right now. We're leaving Rome, renting a car. The trouble is all of the street signs are written in squiggly lines. Back in Doha. Our flight board's 2 minutes ago. We're in Bangkok. We have a terrible taxi driver. Thank you. A1E. What's up? We forgot to eat today and I've got the shakes real bad. This is the gnarliest airplane food I've ever seen. Look at this wiener. So, it was that video and the success of that video that really reinforced at a time in my career when I needed it the most, the need to take chances and the need to embrace risk and to throw the plan out the window. And I built a successful company around making content like that for YouTube. And in 2014, I think, 2014, yeah, I was invited, 2014, at the peak of making that kind of branded content, I was invited to MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, to go there, to be a fellow there, live there on campus, and it meant shutting down my company. But I was like, fuck it, let's do it. And I shut down my company, and I stopped making any income right after getting married, right when my wife got pregnant, so I could go and be a student at MIT. And my wife thought that was crazy, and she was like, why? What is the plan? And I had no plan for that. I was like, this is an opportunity that I have to take. And while I was there, I was so inspired by the technology I saw being birthed all around me that I started my own tech company. And when I got back to New York City, I hit the ground running, and I raised money in a space I had no idea what I was doing, in a place I had no business being in, which is the technology space. I have no idea. I've still never written a line of code in my entire life. But I started a tech company, and when that tech company launched, it was a big success, and then it started to struggle, it started to fail, and it was like, what do you do? What is your plan now? And we didn't have one, but we figured it out. And 4 months ago now, 3 months ago now, I sold the tech company to CNN for $25 million. And now I'm tasked with probably the biggest, hardest vine to swing on I've ever undertaken, which is to build a new company, and to build that company with the resources of CNN. And our ambition for that company is bigger than anything I've ever done before. And do we have a plan? Not really. Not really much of a plan. I want to end today with just a super quick little story. Yesterday, I got into here to Hamburg after like a 15, 16-hour journey to get here. I missed some flight and got stuck in Amsterdam. And I was beat and I was exhausted. I got off the plane and I came straight here, and I did this wonderful Q&A with Christoph. Is he here? Is he here?
Yeah, Christoph.
Yeah. Where is he?
Christoph,
Christoph.
where are you?
Christoph, great.
There he is.
There's the man. We had a great Q&A. It was wonderful. And despite being so tired, it was just great. Anyway, I get back to my hotel room last night, and I started thumbing through Twitter, as one does, and I saw this tweet, and I want to talk about it. And the tweet said, saw at Casey Neistat on OMR 17 stage. One comment, overvalued. So no, I want to talk about that. I do, and I think I can do it in 90 seconds. Maybe what this guy meant was that he doesn't like my creativity. And if that's the case, I get it. Creativity, by definition, is subjective. You can't make everybody happy. But what I think he meant, because he used the word overvalue, what I think he meant is that I think he meant overvalued. So I wanted to address that, and I wanted to address that creativity aside. Let's just look at metrics for 1 second. Last year, 2016, my YouTube channel, I did 1 billion views. So that's 6 billion minutes of content viewed. That is 10,000 years of content that I made being consumed by people. And I'm not saying this to brag or boast, but if you look at, like a friend of mine, her name's Liza Koshy. Liza does 100 million views every month on YouTube. Liza has 10 million Instagram followers, and she has literally 10x. That's not hyperbole, that's fact. 10x the engagement of Kim Kardashian. Liza, she writes and directs and edits and stars in and produces and controls the distribution of all of her own content. And with that, Liza has she's built a bigger audience than any ad agency or creative house could ever buy. So I say this to you, dipshit, is she overvalued too? And the reason why I get so upset by that kind of stupidity is because, to me, what that represents is my least favorite kind of thinking. And it's the kind of thinking that holds on to something, holds on to an old norm, because it's been historically successful. And it ignores a change, a seismic change that I think most everyone in this room is keenly aware of. And that change is me, I'm a small example of that change, and I get to come on stages like this and be celebrated and all of this incredible stuff because I was, past tense, I was an outlier in this space, doing things nobody else had done before. And that's changing. That's no longer the case. I am now one of many. But right behind me, Liza included, right behind me on my heels, is a tidal wave of creators that need nothing from anyone and are courting and building audiences beyond anything that's ever been possible before. And that is what the future looks like. So with that, I end by saying this. The people who hang on to this old way of doing things, the people who have the unwillingness to embrace what's next, that guy who sent the tweet, he is sitting on the deck of the Titanic, sipping champagne, and we creators are the fucking iceberg. Thank you.